Hello. Today I wanted to explore the question, why do civilizations collapse and if our civilization is in danger. Any organism contains elements that can ultimately destroy it. The internal imperfection of biological organisms as well as political ones most often causes the death of an object. As people increasingly die not from death caused by external causes, more people die today from eating too much than from eating too little, more people die from old age than from infectious diseases, and more people commit suicide than are killed by soldiers, terrorists, and criminals combined. This is how civilizations perish because of their own vulnerabilities. As the historian Toynbee wrote, civilizations die from suicide, not from murder. Despite the attempts of some authors to trace the origins of the collapse of human communities to one single factor, the collapse of civilizations is usually caused by a combination of them. Moreover, the more complex a civilization is, the greater is the number of factors that influence its destruction, and it is quite difficult to distinguish between the main and the secondary ones. For this reason, these factors can be compared to viruses and pathogenic bacteria. When the body is strong, the immune system successfully suppresses hostile flora, but as soon as it weakens, a sudden gust of wind would be enough to bring down the once great state. Regarding the terminology of the subject under study, the very concept of civilization itself has been interpreted in different ways by many historians and philosophers, but this video will focus on two definitions. The first, implying civilization as a separate distinctive culture, state, or group of people united in some entity for one reason or another, and the second, implying civilization as the universal civilization of humankind. The first definition is more suitable for the study of history, since, due to the fact that the world was much less globalized than it is now, many communities existed with an extremely vague understanding of other civilizations, and even then such knowledge had little influence on their lives. The second definition is more suitable for studying the modern world due to its greater unity and interconnectedness, because even the most notorious nationalist politicians who want to isolate their nations from all of humanity will not be able to ensure complete autarky in the country they lead. Speaking about the fall of civilizations in history, climatic, environmental, epidemiological, and military factors are considered the main reasons for the death of certain communities. As Jerry Diamond pointed out, for example, in his work, the fall of the civilization of Easter Island was caused by environmental factors. The deforestation led to soil erosion and consequently to the loss of resources and extinction of the population. There are plenty of parallels with the modern world in regard of climate and environmental factors. We have all heard about the problem of global temperature change and environmental pollution. Societies choose to fail or succeed by the decisions they make or fail to make in relation to their environments, Diamond concludes. What such phenomena have led to in history is well illustrated by the myths about Atlantis and the biblical legends about the flood, which have roots in a large-scale volcanic eruption on the island of Santorini and the breakthrough of Mediterranean waters into the Black Sea. As for the epidemiological factor of the collapse of civilizations, history is abundant with similar examples. During the Black Death in the 14th century, between 30 and 60% of the European population perished. Outdated social institutions were undermined, religious intolerance increased, and feudalism began its decline. Similarly, diseases brought by Europeans during the colonization of America turned out to be fatal for the indigenous population of these territories. A significant part of the local tribes and civilizations became extinct due to epidemiological factor. If we talk about the military factor of the fall of civilizations, it is worth distinguishing between such concepts as foreign invasion and overstretched empires. Direct foreign invasions and colonization, for example, contributed to the collapse of many American civilizations, while the problem of overstretched empires applies to entities such as the Habsburg Empire, which spent its resources on endless aggressive campaigns instead of investment in economic development. The fall of the Roman Empire is perhaps one of the most complex examples in human history. All of the above factors, such as climatic, which influenced the immigration of various tribes to the west, military and epidemiological, which strongly affected the Eastern Roman Empire during the plague of Justinian, influenced the disappearance of the Roman civilization. However, they are not the only ones, not the key ones, since the gradual process of weakening the empire took place over many centuries. In addition to such negative factors as the incompetence of some leaders, it is worth paying attention to the moral and institutional decline caused by the loss of self-identification and its replacement with another anti-imperial, anti-Roman and pacifist ideology. The rise of Rome was largely due to social institutions and values that predisposed Rome to development, glory, and greatness. Such foundations of Roman self-identification as civic virtue, which places the state and laws above everything else, and influences the work of all institutions, including first of all military and political, as well as a life-affirming polytheistic religion, encouraging people to revere man and human dignity, led the empire to its apogee. However, as it turns out later, the empire, having conquered one rebellious legion called Judea, planted a time bomb under itself. The religious sects that exist in Judea were predisposed to messianism. According to their beliefs, one day a messiah would appear capable of saving Judea. Early Christian sects engaged in the propaganda of Christianity, which had a strong appeal to those in the lower classes, including slaves, because of the fact that it offered a sense of community, hope, and salvation. All of this undermined the authority of Roman power, challenging the Roman cultural code by bringing a new set of values that were fundamentally at odds with the values of the classical world. Equality, embodied in the words of St. Paul, that there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is no male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus, instead of the deep-rooted social hierarchy of the Roman Empire. Pacifism and non-violence expressed in a call to turn the other cheek instead of the militarism and military honor inherent in Rome, focusing on the afterlife and the sinfulness of man instead of worldly glory and the life-affirming Roman spirit, as well as loyalty to God over the state, gradually changed the identity of the Roman Empire. In addition, Peter Brown argues that the adoption of Christianity has exacerbated existing divisions, making society polarized. Thus, combined with military, climatic, and epidemiological factors, the gradual replacement of the identity that once allowed Rome to become a superpower influenced the gradual decline of this great civilization, which finally fell in 1453. Despite the global prosperity it provides and the overcoming of disease, hunger, and poverty, itself has the potential to destroy the existing social systems. The simultaneous passage of the first biological revolution, characterized by the development of nano and biotechnologies, has the potential for the death of a significant part of the world population and civilization as we know it. The concept of human rights, taken for granted in many countries today, is in fact the result of the long history of struggle. The cause. In fact, the scientific and economic progress of mankind demanded a different morale and social institutions. For example, why was there such a difference in the rights of men and women in earlier times, and why everything changed in the 20th century? The answer to the raised question is that social institutions supported by legislation, as well as public morality, are a reflection of the economic and technological structure of society. For example, Harari considers the transition to an agricultural lifestyle from hunter-gatherer societies to be the era of the consolidation of patriarchy and the enslavement of women. The transition was characterized by the fact that for objective biological reasons, men became the main economic engine, that is, those who were able to create greater value in the field. The same revision of public morality occurred with the new industrial revolution. Reaching its apogee in the 19th century and placing less demands on physical strength, the industrial revolution, by putting women at the machine and thereby demonstrating their economic importance, led to a change in the role of women in society. Likewise, the economic and military importance of the popular masses during the wars of the 20th century was a factor in the introduction of universal suffrage to them and significant reduction of economic exploitation. And morality, as it has been shown throughout world history, is not universal and is subject to change as economic and political conditions change, marked by the emergence of an insurmountable level of inequality between segments of the population, not only in an economic sense, but also in a biological one. A society will emerge in which there will be two groups of people who need to conclude a new social contract: the elite, which controls AI and robotic means of production, and the global proletariat, which has lost its economic significance due to the lack of need for its labor and living on subsidies from benevolent elites. However, How long will this benevolence last? Do the elites who have taken advantage of the latest nano and biotechnologies and have become a biologically different species need this ballast of the other part of the society? Why didn't slave owners, who perceived slaves as Untermenschen, exterminate them? The point is that slaves had economic importance in a slave society. However, this situation is radically different from the one on the threshold of which whose data are much more likely to be psychopaths than others. Moreover, the situation is further aggravated with the fact that the global population is projected to reach approximately 9.7 billion by 2050, which means that there will be more consumption, emissions, and pollution. Will there emerge new Hitlers who decide to drop off the ballast? Will there emerge new Spartacus who will rouse the poor to fight for a more equitable distribution of Panem et Circenses? Just as the time it takes to cover a route from point A to point B decreases as the speed of the vehicle increases, so humanity reduces the time available to it for comprehension by pressing the pedal of progress to the floor.